First, are there any adjustments to the agenda? Hearing none, then we'll go through introductions, and as usual, I'll call out towns, and representatives who are here can identify themselves. Starting with Grand Isle County Youth. Alburgh Town. Alburgh Village. Bakersfield.
Bill Irwin.
Berkshire. Enosburg Falls. Enosburg Town. Fairfax.
Barbara Murphy.
Fairfield.
Hi, Julia Callan.
Fletcher.
Lori Rupel.
And Michelle Frenier.
Franklin.
Yvonne Danduran.
Georgia.
Carl Rosenquist, Georgia.
Kirk Waite.
Grand Isle.
Howard DeMars, Grand Isle.
Highgate.
Jack Pelkey, Highgate.
Isle of Mott. Montgomery. North Hero. Richford. Sheldon. South Hero.
Bob Bierman.
And Peter Zamore. St. Albans City.
Chip Sawyer, City of St. Albans.
St. Albans Town. Swanton Town.
Nick Brusso.
Swanton Village.
Heidi Bridge Valenta.
And staff.
Bethany Remmers.
Oh, sorry.
Passing it over to Greta.
Greta Brunswick, staff.
Kyle Grenier, staff.
And Catherine Dimitrick.
Okay. Catherine, are we having any extended introductions tonight?
We are not this evening with our packed agenda. I put it on
Okay.
hold for a month, but we'll be back next month. If anybody wants to volunteer, let me know. Otherwise, I'll be in touch and you could be the lucky one.
Sounds good. Is there any public here for a comment? Doesn't look like there is. So then we'll jump into the substantive part of the agenda, starting with the guest speaker, Caleb Grant of Rural Community Transit.
I don't see Caleb here yet. I
Ah.
did confirm with him earlier today. So I hope he will be in attendance.
Okay, well, we can skip that for now and jump to the minutes of the December 2025 meeting. Are there any comments or a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
I'll
Second,
second that.
any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained?
I'll abstain. Kirk Waite.
Okay,
Can I just get the name of who gave that motion and seconded?
was it Andy who made the motion?
I
I
have
make a
Yvonne
motion.
and Howard.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yvonne and Howard, whoops, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, well, then why don't we next go into the committee reports? Starting with Finance and Operations, Kirk.
So we did meet. We reviewed the final draft of the FY 25 budget. That's a agenda item for later in the meeting, so I won't go into discussion here. But the action item is to have the board ratify and approve the draft as final. We also reviewed the reserve fund policy and are recommending some updates for adoption as an action item later in the agenda as well. We plan to meet sometime in February, don't have a final date yet, to have a discussion around any needs for a budget adjustment.
Personnel, Bob?
Personnel did not meet, though I don't know if Catherine has an update on personnel activities.
I just a quick update that we did have one staff member move to long-term leave, and that was expected. And we are working to fill a vacant position potentially with an intern that we already have working with us.
The executive committee met and approved changes to a brownfields loan to Golden Junk. We reviewed the annual audit, and we also had a discussion on the status of the Land Use Review Board approval of our regional plan amendments. Project review, Bill?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. So we have a couple of hearings that are in continuance. They are first a tower in Enosburg for wireless telecommunications. It was unapproved in a past hearing due to its height. They have come back with a lesser height, and we'll be meeting again to get some additional information in our next meeting in February. Similarly, we have another tower, this one in South Hero. And by the way, all of this that I'm sharing is on the 10th page of the package of information sent out to us. That one in South Hero is also in the early stages, so we'll be hearing about that more. It's entirely different. Rather than a tower, it's a silo that is being built with an adjacent barn and another silo, so it blends in with the scene somewhat. And then lastly, we had a couple of staff reviews that were evaluated by staff for us, and we all agreed that those were appropriate in their findings. Specifically, there was a tower in Sheldon that was adding a co-locator on that, and then a new installation in Georgia where they're again putting an installation in, and this time it's a relatively low installation, so it is something that we would agree was in conformance with the regional plan and did not have substantial regional impact. That's our report. We'll again meet in February and look forward to seeing everybody then.
Okay, thank you. Transportation Advisory Committee, Barclay's not here, I take it.
Barclay is unable to make it tonight. But we do have Caleb who has joined us. Peter, if you wanted to
Okay.
take a break in your committee
Okay,
reports.
sure, sure. Yep. Welcome, Caleb.
Thank you very much, and my apologies for the troubles with the Zoom link. Happy to be joining. I was frantically calling the phone number on the agenda, and it was a tech issue, so here I am. Thanks for having me. You want me to hop right into introducing you guys to RCT?
I think that's, unless Catherine has something she wants to say.
I think that's great. As the board knows, we've talked about before that RCT is the new transit provider for Franklin and Grand Isle counties, taking over from Green Mountain Transit as of January 1st. So we thought it would be a great opportunity for Caleb to talk with the board and introduce RCT to the board.
Thank you very much. And I do have a short presentation if that works for everybody.
Great.
So those of you who I haven't met, my name is Caleb Grant. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Rural Community Transportation, which is one of the regional transportation providers for the state of Vermont, and fortunate to have the opportunity to serve Franklin and Grand Isle, as Catherine mentioned, starting January 1st. So as your new provider, I thought it'd be great to give you just a quick introduction to the organization, and then happy to answer any questions you may have about the future of our service to your area. So let me pull this up 1 second. Can you see it okay?
Yes.
So one change that you may not be familiar with is RCT is a private nonprofit, a 501c3, and we provide transportation across Caledonia, Orleans, Essex, Franklin, Grand Isle, and Lamoille counties. So really the whole northern part of the state. Another adjustment is, as opposed to the GMT structure, we are kind of statutorily regulated. So kind of an additional layer above the 501c3. And it's, legislative speak, so I'll hop right through there. Our board is represented with individuals who are both municipally nominated and represent their counties, as well as our large seats. And then each of our regional planning offices and VTrans also sit on the board as ex officio members with kind of a intent of advocacy for their regions, as we do cover quite a bit of territory. So our mission at RCT is improving the lives and communities we serve. Our vision is to connect and enhance the rural community through innovative transportation solutions. And just a few highlights from this past year. We received a great award from the Lamoille County Planning Commission. My 18-year-old self may be a little ashamed, but it was a project planning award, which I never expected, but certainly happy. And, just as context, Lamoille County was the last expansion that RCT had. So similar situation, expanded into the territory, took over the on-demand and fixed route transportation, and have seen a lot of success in our initial years. We are also a 2025 CTAA, which is the Community Transportation Association of America. We are a finalist for Provider of the Year, which we are very proud of. Got beat out by a transportation organization in Alaska, but that's maybe next year. And then we're very proud we are the largest electric fleet in the state of Vermont. We went through a joint grant between the Federal Agency of Transportation and Energy, and actually evaluated having our entire fleet electrified. So happy to talk a little bit about the highs and lows of that, but an important part of our operations. So we offer a number of different services. We offer the fixed route in the form of commuters, loops, which are fixed route transportation that operates within communities, shoppers, which are primarily focused on getting individuals to nutritional access in the form of grocery stores, on demand, which I'll get into the details a little bit more of that. We also offer a service which may be unfamiliar to the Franklin and Grand Isle communities, which is microtransit, which I'll talk a little bit more about here in a minute. And then we're also the only organization in the state that operates what we call a CODS program, or communities, organizations, departments, and schools. So we actually contract with local nonprofits to be their transportation provider, which gives us a great deal of flexibility and opportunity as you think about the needs of your community. So if you look at the general distribution, and all of these were for 2025 fiscal year. So obviously with the expansion, any of these kind of percentages that I share will shift fairly dramatically, but happy to get into that as well. So as you look at the fixed routes across our service territory, we do offer 4 commuter routes: the Route 100, the US 2, which is largely a state worker commuter, the Auburn and Georgia commuter, and the Richford St. Albans commuter. We offer 2 shuttles, the J-Lin, St. Johnsbury to Lindenville, and now the St. Albans downtown. And then the 4 shoppers, which serve as really supplements to the O&D program, but more concentrated efforts to get individuals to grocery stores. And feel free to hop in at any time if people have questions. I have limited view, so feel free to just hop in verbally. So when I mentioned microtransit, what we call it is RCT rides. And basically what it is, it's an Uber style transportation solution for communities. It's fare free and it's both app based and the traditional methods of just calling into our call center and being able to book a ride. What makes microtransit critical for communities is its low barrier transportation, which many of our on-demand transportation solutions require some form of qualification, whether it be qualification of the individual through Medicaid or on-demand or one of our CODS partners, but also qualification of trip. With microtransit, individuals require no kind of pre-approval or qualification process. Any individual is open to booking a trip if the vehicle is available and can go anywhere within the service area. So these are the vehicles that we operate. So we operate RAV4s. A big principle of RCT is that we right size our fleet. So if we're able to operate with a sedan as opposed to a large bus, we actually send those smaller vehicles in the field, which are much more efficient and give us the opportunity to bring on drivers at entry-level basis. And then we also circulate ADA vehicles to ensure that all of our mobility needs are met through the microtransit service. So Morrisville was the most recent or was the original addition into. So it's an interesting study. It's a kind of an odd amorphous shape here. But if you actually overlay this into the community, you can see some of the rationale between where this shape came about. We did have a fixed route service very similar to the St. Albans Loop that circulated through this area. And replaced it with a microtransit and have seen an increase from serving about 42 different individuals on a regular basis to anywhere from 500 to 700 a week. So really expanding the reach of public transportation and engaging a whole new population. And the shape continues to evolve. One of the really important aspects of RCT's transportation is really following the data. So our original shape was pretty tight around the Morrisville area. A lot of expressed interest following the floods and the loss of a grocery store to expand into Johnson. So we ran a 6-week pilot and actually monitored what the service degradation was, because microtransit works most effectively when vehicles stay within a bound geographic area. That's where you gain the efficiencies. And once you start doing those linear trips running along Route 15, you can lose a lot of efficiency. So we did a 6-week study and actually found that there was a 26% decrease in number of trips provided, a 23% decrease in miles, or a 23% increase in miles traveled, and about a 27% increase in time in vehicle, meaning that people were riding a little bit longer. And we were able to actually calculate what we would need to do to offset that degradation to the core service, and introduced and sought funding to bring a second vehicle to offset all those degradations. So now Johnson is included. You'll also see Elmore down there in the bottom. That was through a lot of community engagement. We sat in a lot of assisted living facilities and talked to individuals in the community, and there seemed to be an express interest that it's great getting to the grocery store. It's really good going to the hair salon or to the hospital, but why can't we include a state park? So we actually expanded that based off of community surveys, and it's been a great asset to those individuals who are typically bound by the Morrisville area. So just because all of you are associated with regional planning, I thought you'd find these interesting. So the heat map below is kind of the concentration of trips. And if you're a transportation planner, you'd say, well, there's your fixed route, right? You go to the red spots and you do that on an hourly basis. But the image on the left is the origination of those trips. So you can see the impact of microtransit as you start to kind of access some more marginalized areas as you look at kind of the concentrated development cores. The other aspects, and then this past year, we actually changed the Newport community loop into microtransit as well, and have seen an enormous increase in both usage by a more diverse population of individuals, but a lot more access to services that we either were unable to develop on the main kind of fixed route corridor, or just any type of small businesses. All that type of investment that requires to be on those main corridors, we're allowed to access individuals throughout the service area. So the next category is on demand, which you had under GMT previously. The core of that being Medicaid, older adults and persons with disabilities. Job Access is a program that runs through the state that has not traditionally been done in Franklin and Grand Isle, but that we started on January 1st, as well as Rides to Recovery, which is another state-funded program, which works with individuals going through the recovery process to access the resources they need in order to support that journey. So if you look at our services by type and by budget share, and this is one of those that's going to change dramatically as we bring on the Franklin County. And again, this is by budget. The vast majority of RCT trips are provided by volunteer drivers. It's something we're very proud of. It obviously offers a lot of complexity in the dispatching aspects, but it offers the opportunity to provide many more trips closer to individuals at a much lower cost. So we've already engaged a Franklin County community driver, recruiter, and manager, and they've been attending a lot of community meetings. So if you see her in your community, her name's Gabby, feel free to introduce yourself and point her in the right direction of where we could pick up more volunteers. And then these are our funding by sources. So you can see that RCT historically has been largely funded by Medicaid. We are the largest Medicaid provider in the state. So typically, Franklin County will have anywhere from 400 to 500 trips a week in Medicaid, and we're anywhere from 1,200 to 1,500 a week in our other service areas. So now with the inclusion of Franklin and Grand Isles, we're almost double many of the providers, all but one, in the Medicaid program. If you're interested in the finances of RCT, we do try to stay very true to budget. One of the benefits of being a largely on-demand program is that if we do have funding remaining, we just give more rides. So in my 3 years of service, I think the first year we actually ended up losing $130. The second year we lost $70, and this past year $110 in our final balance sheet. So I always encourage my finance manager to let me just make a donation at the end of the year so we can hit zero, but he's concerned that may look a little fishy. So we are largely federal and Medicaid funded, but we do work very closely with our local communities for appropriations, as well as a program which I'll share, which is what we call the Buses for Better program, which I'm hoping to see in the Franklin Grand Isle areas very soon. One of the critical decisions we made when I joined RCT is that we didn't want to monetize the attention of individuals who had no choice but to use public transportation. So we work with for-profit partners to pay for the sides of the bus, like many kind of advertising brokers might. But then we contract local artists to design the sides of the buses, and they're all intention to promote other nonprofits. So you'll see one of our pilot programs at the bottom, the Route 100 commuter, Skeeta, the hat company, I'm sure you see them all over Vermont, sponsored the side of the bus, and it promotes our state parks. Up in the left is our J. Lynn, which is another one of the community bus systems, and Better Real Estate actually paid for the side of that to promote the Linden Outing Club, which is the Linden local ski mountain. And so the hope is that over the next couple of years, we'll be able to introduce the Buses for Better program to the Franklin and Grand Isle communities, bring some of your local artists onto the sides of our buses, and promote other nonprofits as we ensure our fiscal future. So it's really just a matter of trying to figure out how to provide for the rural transportation gap connect our communities and assist in all individuals who are finding that transportation is really the barrier between kind of the things they need, the things they want in their life. We are constantly having the discussion that oftentimes transportation is cited as the but for transportation, this program would work, or but for transportation, I'd be able to make this transformation in my life. And so our goal is to really remove that as a barrier and allow our partners and the members within our community to really thrive and function at the best of their abilities. So, same type of funding, a little bit different for GMT, but more consistent with GMT Rural. All of this is done through the annual grant application through VTrans. 5311, which is the traditional fixed route service for rural transportation. CMAQ is the newest program under congestion mitigation and air quality. And then obviously the planning grant, which we actually just introduced into the Franklin County area, launching the expansion of our transit development plan to include your community. And we're actually partnering with the Transportation Advisory Committee of Franklin County to help get those surveys out. And then we'll be reporting to them before we actually approve the transit development plan. So, I think generally I've been absolutely amazed at both how engaged and caring the Franklin community is. As you can see in our presentation, we cover a lot of different communities, and I can confidently say that Franklin has one of the most engaged populations as far as both supporting transportation, but also those who depend on it for all their critical needs. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to discuss anything else in more detail or answer any questions you may have.
Questions? Yeah, Chip?
Hey, Caleb, thanks for that. I think it's our best introduction to RCT so far. I work for this and live in the city of St. Albans, and I know that there's a group of folks led by Northwestern Medical Center and the United Way discussing the opportunities for microtransit in the greater St. Albans area and perhaps beyond. And Franklin County represents a great opportunity for growth for RCT, and I'm wondering if there are plans underway to implement microtransit service in the greater St. Albans area as well.
Yeah, so fortunately, GMT did do a feasibility study, so we have some good kind of baseline data. What I will share is that the GMT feasibility study came back and said, the fixed route's working just fine, and this community, probably doesn't need this additional resource. But I will share that I got the exact same feedback when we evaluated the Newport community. And what it missed was all of those kind of fringe opportunities, both in individuals who live off of fixed route, but all those resources that aren't necessarily within that kind of parameter. And just seeing the impact it has on those communities where, seniors are able to go to, get their hair done or visit friends for lunch, go to the courthouse. That's not something that typically you have public transportation for. So I am motivated to question that feasibility study and continue on that. And that's going to be a big part of that transit development plan. I will share that our current transit development plan, which is going through kind of a re-examination with the demographic or the census data for Franklin and Grand Isle, set a pretty aggressive timeline over 5 years to bring microtransit to our entire service area. So it's seeing the impacts it has on communities, how much it broadens the engagement of choice ridership. It's certainly something we're very motivated to do. And I think St. Albans, especially midday, is primed for it. I think if you ride the St. Albans loop, it's really busy in the mornings and in the evenings. So it functions much closer to a fixed route. And I think there's probably the most feasible opportunity is some sort of hybrid where you maintain that large bus fixed route service and then engage with those microtransit vehicles midday. But we have some good data, and we're going to be exploring that as part of the transit development plan.
Are you in touch with those folks I mentioned at all?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, and they're engaged with the creation of the surveys that are going out shortly. So please, if you can, complete the surveys, and they'll be part of that group that receives the report prior to its approval.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
Bill?
Yeah, thanks, Caleb. Great presentation. Actually, very refreshing ideas that you're using and tools that you're using to develop products to help the communities. I was wondering what your outreach is so that people in communities where they don't necessarily see the vehicles as often. For example, I'm from Bakersfield and we've never really had a fixed route go through there, but your number of your options might help us. How are you reaching out to the community so they know about your products and then can reach out to take advantage of them?
Yeah, I think it's kind of multifold. Is one is you'll notice our vehicles are pretty loud and obnoxious, and it's fascinating because when we went through our rebrand, our buses looked very similar to what the current Franklin buses look like. And I went to our kind of branding consultants and I said, I want something bright and I want something hopeful. And being new to transportation, I finally have the opportunity to not have to be tasteful in my kind of branding exercises. So, what I found really surprising is the minute we started putting bright and colorful vehicles in, all these communities are like, we finally have transportation, and we had been there the whole time. The number of vehicles you spot in parking lots or the number of vehicles you see rolling through your community. The other part is just showing up. I hope many of you seen, my willingness to join community meetings, to have conversations. I spend a lot of time in the basement of the Barton Town Hall because that's where the senior meals are. And I think it's getting out to the communities, it's listening to community leaders, and it's just making sure that we're visually recognizable, because I think you'd be surprised as to how many communities we step into without ever being noticed. But we do have some kind of outreach campaigns, and we do send letters to every town community, just giving them an update. It's all data driven. It's like, this is how many rides we've given in your community. This is the needs of your communities, and helping to go through that process. So I'm hoping to make that part of the town meeting days going into the next year cycle, of really making people aware of the impact that public transportation is having in their individual communities.
Yeah, that sounds great. I was going to actually recommend that maybe you could send something out to all the towns for town meeting day, because that is one way that a lot of people learn about the various services that are provided, especially those services that are high value based on low cost and convenience.
And we do try to do kind of an all staff hands on deck on town meeting day. I think my record thus far is 7 town meetings on town meeting day. You get sucked in, but I think those kind of primer letters of, this is how many services, how much service you've received, and this is the needs of your community, can be very informative. And
Thanks
our hope
again.
is to make that part of all the packets.
Nicholas?
Yes. Do you see how any upcoming cuts to Medicaid could affect RCT in any way financially? And also, what is the fare schedule on our when it comes to RCT transit routes look like?
Yeah, so all of our services are fare free. So no kind of introduction of fares in any of our service. Even the microtransit is fare free. The micro or the Medicaid, there's a couple different layers to that. One is kind of changes in federal regulations as to the eligibility. Really kind of concerning the projections by the state on the number of individuals who will lose their Medicaid eligibility. I haven't seen good forecasts as to what portion of that population that is kind of potential to lose Medicaid eligibility are both Medicaid and transportation eligible, but that is something we keep our kind of eyes very closely on. I spent a lot of time in Montpelier, and I will say that both the Senate and the state transportation committees are very mindful of how we might grow the O&D program to help supplement any type of Medicaid cuts. The other layer to that is that DEVA the Department Vermont Health Access is currently going through the Medicaid RFP process. So anytime in the next, I thought it would have been a month ago, but anytime in the next few months, they'll be notifying who the next Medicaid provider would be. So very mindful that we may have a for-profit Medicaid transportation provider navigating the system very soon. But its actual impacts on RCT is because we run so lean. I mean, most of our offices are out of strip malls across our region. So we don't have a big infrastructural footprint. So most of our costs are directly related to providing service. So it makes us much more resilient when it comes to any types of cuts. But, my concerns aren't necessarily in the financial future of RCT because we are so closely related to actually providing service when it comes to cost. But those passengers who have kind of found a real kind of security in being able to depend on us providing that service. So I'm worried for the passengers, not necessarily for the financial future of RCT.
Howard?
Yep, thank you. Thank you, Caleb. I've enjoyed your presentation immensely. I live in Grand Isle, and you mentioned Grand Isle County a lot, but I'm not sure I've seen any of your fine-looking vehicles out here. And also, we have a service known as Cider out here, and it seems like the services would overlap a bit. And I'm wondering if you've been in touch with them to see where maybe some holes are in coverage, and if you guys have ever thought of working together to make things a little better out here.
Yeah, so you kind of answered your own question. The only reason you haven't seen our vehicles is because Cider is the primary transportation provider for Grand Isle. The reason we kind of identified Grand Isle as part of our service area is because we are both the kind of grant recipient for public transportation for Grand Isle, both in the Medicaid and O&D program, as well as Rides to Recovery and Job Access. But have subcontracted Cider to provide those services, not to kind of forget to mention the Allbird commuter, which that bus is getting wrapped very soon. So you will see one of our brightly colored vehicles in Grand Isle County, but working closely with Cider to kind of ensure they get the resources they need to provide those trips, but also remove any barriers they may have to providing the services they want to.
Super. Thank you, Caleb.
Yeah, of course.
Any other questions? If not, thank you very much for a very, oh, I'm sorry, Bob.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't hit the hand. Hey, Caleb, could you give a quick update on how the transition has gone from, in terms of the employee transition, how that's worked out?
Yeah, so we made offers to 20 of the 21 GMT employees, performance challenge with the one individual who's was not eligible to transition. So all eligible employees received an offer from RCT, and I'm proud to say that all employees accepted those offers. So we really were able to maintain the full organization as it carried over. We did recognize the union and are currently going through contract negotiations with the Franklin drivers through the Teamsters. But really proud to say, I think it's been an enthusiastic response by the drivers. There's always some kind of technological hiccups of clocking in is different and all that sort of stuff, but we've tried to keep as much consistency as possible, but really enjoying getting to know them, and are constantly getting positive feedback from the community in the form of appreciations or kudos. So happy to have inherited all of the exceptional staff from Franklin County.
Great,
Generally, the transition, the largest hiccups have been in bringing Franklin County into Medicaid compliance. And so if you do hear any interruptions in service, it's largely related to just working with our providers and DEVA to ensure that we remain within the Medicaid regulations. And so there has been some changes in service, and that's probably been the biggest challenge. But generally, seeing a lot of positivity through the transition, other than some SIM cards that didn't work and firewalls that were temperamental. But and my biggest complaint is we had to switch all of the license plates for all 24 vehicles, and it was 1 degree out that day, and I broke probably 12 drill bits trying to get some of those license plate bolts. So that has been the biggest pain of the transition, and I would take that all day.
Great. Well, thank you very much for a very informative presentation and a very important service for Grand Isle and Franklin counties. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I very much appreciate the opportunity. As I mentioned, a big part of what we do is showing up. So I put my email in the chat. Feel free to reach out at any moment. And if there are any opportunities for myself or my colleagues to engage with either community members or organizations that you think would benefit from better understanding RCT or have questions about the transition, just reach out. We're happy to show up and begin those conversations.
Great.
Caleb,
Thanks.
could you share your presentation and then I can, with me, if you could email it, then I can share it with the board members that are here and those who couldn't attend as well.
Yes, of course. Yep.
Great,
I'd be
thanks.
happy to. Yep. Bye.
Great.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, we'll go back to the commission reports, and I think we're up to the Brownfields Committee, but I don't see Megan here.
I can report. We
Okay.
we got some updates on some projects. We restructured the Champlain transmission loan that's going out to Burlington just to deal with some issues they've been having with their projects. But it's also important to make sure we have loans going out from our brownfield funding as well. And then looked at some funding for Highgate Village Core and I think the South Hero Meeting House.
Okay, great. Next is plan and policy, Lori.
We did not have quorum, I think partly because of me being sick. But there was discussion of the new draft and the adoption process. I think Chip was there. And that's our last agenda item on for today's meeting that Catherine, I think, is gonna inform everybody about.
Yeah. Okay, Vermont Economic Progress Council, Barbara, anything?
Well, once more, we didn't have any projects in our area, so there really isn't anything to report, but I will keep you posted if anything exciting happens.
Sounds good. Rural Community Transit, Bob or Catherine, anything further on that score? Okay. Healthy Roots, I don't see Marietta here. Anybody from that one? Okay, and then the Northwest Vermont Regional Foundation, Kirk, any news there?
Nothing to report.
Okay. And anybody on the staff want to talk about what they've been doing? Okay, hearing none, we will go to our next item, which is another transportation presentation by Kyle.
Thank you, Peter. Good evening, everybody. It is a little bit of a transportation heavy evening, at least at the beginning. I'm going to share a quick presentation and just talk about the transportation program at NRPC and some of the work that I've been doing.
You're up.
Thank you. And I just need to swap the screen so you can see the other version. And that's not what I wanted to do either. I'm so sorry. All right, that looks normal for everybody now. All right, so I just want to talk a little bit about the transportation program at NRPC. I just had my third anniversary, so excited to be here and feel like I'm learning every single day, even though I still feel like the new person in the office. The transportation program at NRPC really kind of follows three guiding principles, and they are the goals that are in the regional plan. And they really focus on these three areas. So accessibility, ensuring that residents have equitable access, regardless of many different factors. Resiliency, we want to make sure that our transportation networks are resilient to the impacts of climate change and other financial stress, things like that. And opportunity, we want to make sure that our transportation network enhances residents' overall opportunities. So quality of life, land use goals, and economic opportunities. I'm going to just talk about a few of the program essentials. So a lot of the work that we do for transportation planning at NRPC revolves around the Transportation Planning Initiative, which is a statewide initiative designed to include public transportation participation. We engage the Transportation Advisory Committee, and that's a committee that you hear from here at the meeting from time to time. And that committee's true goal is to help provide local and regional input related to transportation projects and concerns. I spend a lot of my time day to day with municipal technical assistance, and that can be anything from a really big question to a tiny little question that is just helping to ensure that a select board or a town administration, town manager, town clerk is filing the appropriate paperwork or looking in the right place. And really giving that capacity to towns that don't have the opportunity otherwise. And data collection. I think every year we talk a little bit about, the board gets a little bit of an update about data collection activities. This past year we did a lot of culvert inventory on the rail trail. Looking forward to doing that again this summer. But traffic studies for towns that are looking at needs for infrastructure or safety. And that's a service that we can provide that towns don't necessarily have access to otherwise. Some other program essentials. We, not just me, other folks in the office as well, spend a lot of time on project-based committees. So Caleb talked a little bit about the O&D program or mobility committees, as the state is calling them now. I am currently serving on an advisory committee for the US 2 Clay Point Road study. So looking at an intersection opportunities on Route 2. And another example is I sit on the Council of Peers with the National Association of Development Organizations, Rural Planning Organization group. And that is an agency that's providing advocacy, education, research, and training for the nation's regional planning and economic development organizations. And a big focus that they have right now is really looking at this emerging network of non-metropolitan planning organizations. So that's really taking these smaller regional planning organizations that are doing big work and making sure that they are reflected in federal policy. So it's kind of a very honored to sit on that and give the Vermont perspective. Plenty of transportation project management opportunities. NRPC from time to time has the opportunity to facilitate a traffic study or other opportunity study in the area for a need that has become or noted as a regional priority. We also serve as municipal project managers for a number of projects that a municipality has received a grant for, and that's a service that we contract out to help the municipality manage those projects and those grant deliverables. And another essential to our program is rail trail coordination and promotion. So for decades, NRPC has been an advocate and steward of the Missisquoi Valley Rail Trail. I'm proud to say that we're still doing that. And with the recent completion of the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail, that's another area that we're putting a lot of time and energy into ensuring its success. I mentioned before the Transportation Planning Initiative, TPI, and many of you who have been on the board for a bit probably know a little bit about this, but it's the core of the transportation planning work that we do. And it derives from some Vermont laws. So in 1988, Vermont passed Act 200, which was a pretty widespread bill to encourage public and citizen participation at all levels of planning. So not just transportation, it applies to other areas in statute as well. As a result of Act 200, in 1993, the Transportation Planning Initiative was created. So for 33 years, the program has grown and morphed into the work that we do now. And just some of those areas of that public participation that we engage in and assist VTrans with is local and regional project review and input. We help to facilitate outreach and publicizing of grants, meetings, and policy changes. The statewide transportation improvement program, which helps to inform the federal government of the projects, the transportation related projects that VTrans is taking on or is planning to spend their money on. Vermont Local Roads training and engagement. Vermont Local Roads is a very heavily involved in helping municipalities, road crews with training, with opportunities, and making sure that they understand the policies and some of the reporting that they have to do at the municipal level. Human Service Transportation Coordination is a big one. Again, Caleb talked about that quite a bit, and public transit coordination. I wanted to mention some of the challenges for the program, and admittedly, I had a really great conversation with Bethany to talk about things that I've seen in my short time, but also some of the historic things that NRPC has seen. And to have 3 bullets on this page makes me feel pretty good. I think that we don't have a lot of barriers, but some of the barriers that we have are difficult. And so, recently there's been a lot of talk about funding challenges, and that's at the state level that, has to do with questions of federal funding. But some of the funding challenges that we've seen have reduced the opportunity to get new projects into a competitive selection process. So a lot of the core work that the TAC has done for years, that opportunity is not existent at this time. So watching the lists and paying attention to regional priorities and having our active and open communication with VTrans is really important. I would also mention that there are a lot of projects within the VTrans capital plan, and some of those are areas that we've seen in the region, projects that have to do with the access to and from the interstate in Swanton, similar interstate access in Georgia. Those are all projects that are in the capital plan, but they have seen significant delays in startup and scoping needs. So again, really trying to monitor where those projects are and making sure they don't totally fall off the radar. Some of those funding challenges are a result of increased cost, but increased costs across the board, and again, it's an area that has been talked about quite a lot, are really affecting infrastructure and maintenance needs. And they also are affecting the opportunities for new projects. And those things all really fall into that area of the need for future planning and growth. So feeling sometimes that those are stagnant. And then again, not a new topic, but fewer active TAC members has certainly reduced some of the collaborative energy needed to help solve some of our transportation challenges. I am really excited to say that at a statewide level, there is a small task force from the planning department that's looking at the requirements of the TAC committees and really massaging out and refining what some of those requirements are. Are there other opportunities? So excited to work with that group of folks a little bit and see what the future of tax across the state can look like. Also wanted to mention just a little bit about the board's role in transportation planning in the program. So the board sees annually the TPI work program, and that talks about some of the money that NRPC is expected to receive and some of the work that we're planning to do on an annual basis. The board historically has been written support for distinctive regional and local transportation priorities. So some examples are a few years ago, the AR35 expansion. The TAC and the board worked together to write about their support of that and its importance to the region. And also a little bit ago, there was some support written about the redirection of Missisquoi Causeway funds. So there was a balance of funds. And the board and the TAC worked together to endorse a recommendation to utilize leftover federal earmark funds to support other transportation and water quality related projects. And then I mentioned also in previous iterations of the VTrans project prioritizations required the board's endorsement for regional priorities. And regional priorities are still being tracked, just not in quite as an official way, but that's still a project that the TAC keeps a pulse on regularly. And also just wanted to give a brief couple of project examples. I mentioned, and I think it was mentioned at a meeting this summer, the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail culvert inventories. We had a couple of wonderful interns this summer who spent some very, very hot days climbing through ravines and looking at stone culverts that were built well over 100 years ago and inventorying their functionality for the agency. When I first started at NRPC, there was a intersection evaluation study in Franklin that had just begun. And that was a project that was funded through TPI dollars, but is a separate task. And we engaged a consultant to look at that intersection, and they made some recommendations. And what's really great with this work, there were a number of recommendations made, and I believe last year at the Franklin Town Meeting, there was an item perhaps that was voted on at town meeting to enact some of those changes at that intersection. So a really great opportunity to see a study maybe not coming to 100% fruition, but to make changes and make the conditions better at that area for those residents in Franklin. We're currently wrapping up another intersection study in Swanton at 207 and Bushy Road. I just got the draft, so looking forward to going through that and involving the TAC and then making the next steps to present those alternatives for possible changes to that intersection with the town. So another project that could have some make some incredible changes to the way that the traffic flows through that area that's growing. I also wanted to make a mention about transportation projects at NRPC often overlap with other areas of focus. So we're currently working on a private road erosion inventory program, and that stems from, that is crossing those boundaries between water quality and transportation planning. Greta, for a little while, has been working on a project with the town of St. Albans. That's a transportation-oriented development that crosses that boundary between transportation and land use planning. And Sean recently worked on a project with Lamoille RPC and looking at Lamoille River flood modeling, which really, especially for our region, and the TAC saw this presentation a few months ago, but looking at emergency planning and the way that the flooding that we see on the Lamoille River impacts areas in our region in Fairfax and Georgia, and if there are opportunities in those areas to make changes. So that is just a brief overview of the transportation program at NRPC. There's certainly a lot of things that weren't touched on and certainly didn't go into very deep into, but if folks have questions, happy to try to answer them, and certainly feel free to reach out if there are specific transportation projects or questions that you have. I'd love to chat.
Questions? I guess not. Thank you very much, Kyle. It's clear that you're involved in an incredible variety of transportation-related activities, and we're grateful for your work.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, now we'll turn to the audit for fiscal year 2025. Kirk?
So on page 15 and 16 of the packet that you each got, Bethany put together a really good summary of the audit report. It's a couple of pages long, but if you read that, you can get a good feel for where we are. I do want to thank Amy, Bethany, and Catherine for not only the results of the audit, which were very positive, but for the efforts all year long, over many years, that leads to the completion of a successful audit with no negative findings. We did have a different auditor this year, and the teamwork displayed to fully understand our financial statements and get to a clear understanding of our overall results was good. It's not when you go through one of these quite complex audits that there aren't going to be things that pop up that need to be answered and addressed. It's how the two teams can work together that makes it either seem like a positive experience or a negative one. This year also required a single audit, and because we expended more than $750,000 from the federal government, the audit confirmed that our financial position is strong as measured by both our net position, which is at about $1.3 million, and our fund balance, which is at about 921. And Bethany did a nice job of explaining the differences between those two. So, certainly I'll open this up if Bethany wants to explain further, but the results of this audit were very positive, and the action that we're looking for tonight is to ratify this audit as the final audit for FY25.
Questions? Hearing none, does anybody want to make a motion?
I move approval of the audit as presented.
Second?
I'll second that, Peter.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you, Kirk, and thank you, Bethany, and your team on this. It's been a great year. Next is the proposed changes to the reserve fund policy, and I think that's again you, Kirk.
Yeah, so one of the responsibilities of the finance committee is to have a policy and to follow the policy around the goal of our reserves. Excuse me. And I think in general, Catherine and the team are going through many of our policies that haven't been looked at in a while. And this was just up for review. There are no major changes here. I think the one change is that it clarifies that the goal of the long-term reserve fund to maintain 3 months of operating costs can be fulfilled both with assigned and unassigned fund balances. So we don't have to have all of the funding to support that goal as assigned to the long-term reserve fund, as long as we also have unassigned fund balance to support that. And this audit highlighted that we do have over $500,000 in unassigned fund balance. So we're in very good situation there. Catherine, do you have any other comments on changes that were made?
The only other change was to up the building reserve by $10,000, and that's a reflection of what we actually have set aside in the assigned building reserve. So it works well.
Great. So again, I think the purpose of this is an action item. Certainly ask any questions that you have, but the action item is that the full board approve the changes to the reserve fund policy as presented in the packet that was sent to each of you.
Any questions? Hearing none, is there a motion?
I move approval of the fund balance update as presented.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, and finally, the regional plan update. Catherine.
Thank you very much, Peter. So as Lori mentioned, the Plan and Policy Committee did meet earlier this month without a quorum. So we did still have a very robust conversation with the members who were able to attend. And then the Executive Committee had the opportunity to talk about the regional plan a bit at their meeting as well. Where we're at in the process is that the Land Use Review Board provided their comments to NRPC based on their preliminary review. We held a public hearing, and then we, as staff, worked with the Plan and Policy Committee members who were present to review and endorse this latest draft that you received about a little over a week ago before the board meeting. This draft incorporates all of the changes as recommended by the Land Use Review Board that the staff and the Plan Review Committee members thought were appropriate to include. And it includes additional changes suggested by community members, citizens, and some local boards that we've continued to meet with through the process. Where we're at now in terms of board process for the regional plan adoption is this is the final draft and the final opportunity to make comments or changes to the regional plan prior to warning our final public hearing. Once we warn our final public hearing for an adoption vote in March, we cannot make any further changes to the plan. So this meeting tonight and the next week is really your opportunity to provide any further comments, corrections, changes, concerns about the regional plan. You can send them directly to me. I already gotten a couple of great minor corrections that people caught because they took a look at the plan. That's great. Keep them coming my way. unless there's any concerns by board members, the plan is that we will be warning our public hearing in mid-February. So all final comments should be to us by February 6th to give us time to create that new final draft. We'll be holding our final public hearing in March and a board adoption vote scheduled for the March meeting. The changes that were made from the last draft to this one were included in the information that we provided, as well as a detailed description of the changes that were made to the future land use map. So hopefully the changes were easy to find if you wanted to look at it from that regard.
Great, thank you, Catherine. Carl?
Yeah, just a question. You made some comment about until next week's meeting. So, but the next meeting, well, first will be next month. Is that not true?
I meant until next week. So you get another week to give us any final comments. So if we'll need all of our final comments by February 6th so that we can create a new draft to warn the final public hearing so that we can hold that before the March board meeting because it's a 30-day notice.
Thank you, Catherine.
Kirk?
Catherine, does the team feel comfortable that you've landed in the spot that the Georgia team is comfortable with from how to respond to the, I guess, the feedback that was received on the draft?
I think we are in a really good place to respond to that. We have a meeting with the Land Use Review Board chair and one of the board members later this week, no, next week, early next week, to review their comments. And one of the comments we'll talk about is the town of Georgia to make sure that we are providing the information they're going to look for. We'll be then following up with the town to get anything we need from the town.
Thank you very much.
So still in process, but I'm confident we'll get there.
Still working it, but that's good.
Yeah.
Chip?
Yeah, Catherine, I'm happy to hear about that meeting. Will that give you opportunity to seek clarification on many of their comments and make any adjustments as necessary? Because I know that was a topic of discussion at our committee meeting.
Yes, it was. That is our hope. I'm not sure how much clarity we'll get, but any additional clarity will be helpful. In particular, some of the Land Use Review Board comments were, I think Peter described them as opaque, some of them. So we're trying to get a little more clarity so we make sure that we provide them everything that they need for their final review so that we can get to yes for our plan.
Yeah, that's great that you're meeting with them. Awesome. Okay, any other questions concerning the plan amendments? I guess that's it for that item. And finally, any commissioner announcements? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second that.
We are adjourned. Thank you all very
Have a
much.
nice evening.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.